curious. I think it's extremely brave to go in from ancient to modern times. It's just a long stretch of history.
That's for sure.
I'm wondering whether it really is legitimate to do such a long-range comparison when you have so much change that takes place in between. And I'm sure measures of inequality are very beholden to a lot of these changes that take place. So wouldn't it be much more instructive to look at, for example, societies in the industrializing period rather than go all the way back? I'm just reminded when I was listening to you of how much I was struck by how much of resources in medieval Europe went into building churches, for example. And I think in one case in France, about half of the measured income of a community went into building a church. And I'm wondering if because of the way institutions that influence this distribution and the growth that comes with it, because if you invest in churches as opposed to investing in agricultural infrastructure, you have very different impacts on income, whether really one can draw much knowledge out of such long-range comparisons.
Good comments. Of course, there is a huge literature. In fact, I've been involved in it, which does what you want me to do, and that is, why not look at more recent inequality experience during the industrial revolutions of the 19th and 20th century? Well, there's a very big literature that's done that, actually. The problem is always the quality of the evidence. The evidence really doesn't get good until the late 20th century. But still, but our motivation was basically this. If you're a pre-industrial society, are they all pretty much the same? And the answer is absolutely not. There is more variance across these 27 countries in our sample for that 2 millennia, in this pre-industrial millennia, than there is in today's economies. Huge variance, inviting explanations that cannot be explained simply because they had an industrial revolution or did not, because none of them have. So the third point I want to make is, I was going to flip back into an earlier diagram, but look at one of the diagrams that Poch was just looking at, and that is with the inequality frontier and the dots with all the observations plotted on it. Gee, that's great. I didn't even have to press the button. Wonderful. Terrific. Faster, faster, faster. Faster, faster. Quick, quick, quick. Fast, fast, fast. I'm going to sleep here while I'm ready. No, keep going, keep going. Keep going. There we are. Yay! You will note that it really is almost like a cross-section of countries. It's very rare in this sample that any of our countries are actually moving through time. The exceptions are Holland, England and Wales, and what's the other? I forget. Is it France? I think it's France is the other. And those are the dotted lines there that are kind of connecting them up. Just to invite you to infer from that the limited time series that we have in this data is consistent with the cross-section. But most of the variance in this data is in the cross-section, which is exactly true when you look at, say, World Bank data, the Squire and whatever his name. Thank you, Deininger and Squire database. By far, the majority of the variance is between countries, not within countries over time. They're pretty stable. There's persistence in that data. So nothing wrong, therefore, in looking at the attributes of these countries in what looks like a time series over 2 millennia, but actually is kind of a cross-section rather than a time series. But okay, I mean, I agree. It's just more evidence to throw on the fire of debates on inequality. So what this does is offer two things that are novel. One is evidence you never thought was going to be there to invite conversations about the determinants of inequality, this pre-industrial stuff. So that's one. And number two is this new idea in terms of using extraction, the extraction ratio. Does that have different political implications and for its connections to institutional change and thus performance of the economy?